Hi, this is Mr. Beck Does Your Homework. This is AP Physics homework number 25 on rotational kinematics. This is question 13 and 14. Question 13 says a remote control car's wheel accelerates at 22.5 radians per second squared. That's going to give me the alpha, the angular acceleration of 22.5, and that's in radians per second squared. If the wheel begins with an angular speed of 10.5 radians per second, that's my initial angular speed of 10.5 radians per second. And it's good, this is all in radians. What is the wheel's angular speed after exactly 7 full turns? The wheel's angular speed. So I'm looking for the final angular speed after exactly 7 full turns. So that's going to be my displacement, but it's giving me seven revolutions, 7 full turns. Now that's the one thing we're going to have to convert. So if we convert revolutions, I know that 1 revolution is going to be 2 pi radians. And that will give me an answer of how many radians is going to be my change in angular displacement. So now I have an alpha, an acceleration, an initial velocity, a final velocity, and a displacement. And I know from my linear terms, I would have v squared equals v0 squared plus 2ax. You'll notice that I'm always going to the linear first. It's just because I know those, and I know that we just translate it to the angular. So here, it's my final angular velocity squared is my initial angular velocity squared plus twice my angular acceleration times my angular displacement. Now what I'm solving for is my final angular velocity, so that's going to be this one, and everything else I know. So my final angular velocity squared is going to be my initial angular velocity squared of 10.5 squared, plus twice my angular acceleration of 22.5 times my angular displacement, and that angular displacement will be the value that I just calculated over there. So then I'm going to get my omega squared equals some value, and then you square root both sides, and you can get yourself your final answer. But this is just algebra from this point. And that is how you solve question 13. That would give me my final angular velocity. Then question 14 is how long does the wheel take to make the 7 turns? So now that I've got my initial velocity, my final velocity, my displacement, now I'm looking for the time. Now to solve for the time, I can use any of the equations that allows me to solve for time. The equation I'm going to use is that my final angular velocity is my initial angular velocity plus my acceleration times time. This is going to be the easiest one to solve just because no squareds or anything. So I plug in my final angular velocity that I just solved for equals my initial angular velocity that I know is 10.5 plus the acceleration of 22.5 times the time. Sorry, that's a t. That's a t. That's a t. There we go. Times the time. And so that is just algebra from this point in to solve for that time. And that is how you would get to the answer to number 14. Hope that was helpful.